10 o'clock here. So, hi everyone, welcome to the Solar Power Market Series. My name is Kyle Pease. I'm a sales engineer here at RENVU. We're going to wait a minute or two for everyone to log on and get ready.
Kyle, is that a hard hat in your picture?
Yep. Yeah, one of my favorite pastimes is rock climbing.
Nice. I thought it was going to be a hard hat for a roof.
Well, I've also had similar pictures for working up on roofs or up in wind turbines, doing some rope access. Generally like working at heights. All right, so today we're going to be hearing from Charlie Seltzer, sales manager at Enphase, and he'll tell us about their new IQ8D Microinverter for commercial applications and their EV charger lineup. Before we dive in, I'll give a little background on RENVU and some of the products and services we offer. RENVU is a US-based solar equipment distributor. We've been at it for over a decade now and have fulfillment centers in California, New Jersey, and Texas. All of our sales engineers have engineering and or solar design or installer backgrounds. We're available to answer any questions you may have, from the basics to the more technical. To spotlight a few of our popular products, first up we have SolarArc. We keep their hybrid inverters on the shelves regularly, and we can take pre-orders now on their new 15Ks. These inverters work great with either the tried and true Fortress or the up-and-coming home grid energy storage options. For cost-effective grid-tied and hybrid high-voltage energy storage inverter options, we also have Solis and Growatt inverters. And for microinverters, of course, we have the crowd favorite here, Enphase. For our installers tuning in, we're offering a $10 gift card per IQ8 Plus on orders of 54 or more. And for panels, we have on the shelf multiple options such as the Q cells, 340 watt, black on black, Hyundai 390 watt, Recom 380, and a large selection incoming. You can check our commercial price list for large volume options and our upcoming offerings. The price list will look about like this. We're sharing a link in our chat now for that. There's also an ESS energy storage system tab to compare different options for inverters and batteries, and looking at the cost per kilowatt to compare the total cost of those systems. Also take a minute here to mention our Blicker residential carport. This is a great way to expand existing solar systems, or an alternative solution where if you can't install solar on a roof. Shown here is the 2-car carport. There's also options for 1 car and for a tandem solution with shared columns. So you can connect multiple of the carport systems together, expanding to fill as many parking spaces as you need. Designed to be assembled by a crew of 2, it doesn't require any special or heavy tools, and is the install is DIY friendly. This is a solar structure, so it is eligible for the extended 26% ITC. It accepts any panels and inverters. This carport is supplied with the Iron Ridge racking system and their underclamps. When combined with the Blicker EPDM T-gasket, the surface becomes watertight. You can add a decorative mesh to hide the solar components and electronics underneath, as well as safety solar lights can be added to the front columns without running any wires or drilling any holes. Depending on the local AHJ requirements, and you can run all the wiring through the carport columns without an external conduit. EV chargers are an excellent addition, and the carport back columns have pre-drilled holes to install the NLX juice box chargers and cables. It is designed and fabricated in Texas and comes with a 25-year warranty. You can also get a structural P stamp you can add up to 24 panels for a 2-car system. Basic load capacities are 35 PSF, which you can upgrade to 65, and the wind loads can go up to 175 miles per hour with seismic design category E. Carport is 18 feet wide and 18 feet deep with a 9.5-foot clearance for the 2-car, and it comes with a 5-degree tilt. Last part I want to go over is our online quote tool. You can find it on our homepage, and it's very easy to go through and generate a formal quote in a few minutes for any type of inverter, mounting type, and racking. So you want to choose your panel, configure your racking from a wide range of options. On the left side, you'll see a bill of materials building up, and the prices will change as you select your products. This is a good way to compare the cost of different options in real time. And then you select your inverters or microinverters. And on the last page, you can add your balance of system, disconnects, EV chargers, and a permit plan set if you like. And then you'll get a quote number. You can email into our sales team. You can review the bill of material, where we can review the bill of materials and weigh in with any insight on the configuration availability. All right, if you have any questions about these products or about Enphase while Charlie is presenting, please feel free to ask in the Q&A section, and we'll get to the questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. You can also email our sales team at info@renvu.com for more information and pricing. As well, we do have recordings of our previous webinars on the RENVU YouTube channel if you want to take a look at any of our past webinar offerings. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll send you a link in a follow-up email. All right. Looks like we're about to get started here. I'm going to hand it over to Charlie.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Let me share my screen. Let's see. All right, are you guys able to see my screen?
We see a chat. Oh, there you go.
Did you see the slide? Does that look okay? All right, great.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Peyton. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for everyone attending today. I'm Charlie Seltzer. I'm the CNI sales manager for the West Coast. Today, we have also Eric Overton, who is our CNI field applications engineer, and also Jay Herman, who is our strategic account manager, and he is going to be focusing on EVs. Let's see. What we're going to cover today, it's going to be a mix of 2 new product offerings that we have coming out that we're very excited of. As you guys know, that Enphase has been predominantly residential microinverter, battery, but now we are dipping our toes into 2 new categories: small commercial, which we have IQ8D coming out this summer, and then also EV chargers. We recently acquired Clipper Creek. So we wanted to give a brief overview of these products and how they can help you with your existing business. So starting with the CNI side. So where are we focusing on, and where do you want to be using Enphase for CNI? We're going to be focused on, with IQ8D, the 208 volt roof mount market. So this is really projects 20 kW to 200 kW. And I know most of the CNI is in the 480 volt section, ground mount. So it's kind of a niche market that we're focused on. And why are we focusing on this one? It's really looking at for a couple of reasons. One, when we look at the inverter landscape, what's out there in the commercial space, there are not a lot of great options for the 208 volt roof mount market. Then also looking at us internally, which segment can we get into? When we're looking at our manufacturing capability and capacity, we can seamlessly transition into the 208 volt space, not having to worry about compromising quality, our warranty, and then also our supply. And furthermore, speaking with our installers and looking at this market, the 200 kW market, understanding on who's doing it is a lot of long tail residential installers, which are the key to Enphase's business. So this is an opportunity to help them really expand. They're already working in the space, or they're interested in expanding into small commercial. So it's an opportunity to help our partners go into small commercial. And looking at also the types of segmenting to the 200 kW roof mount market. The types of types of asset owners in the segments are kind of in the housing side. So HOA, multifamily, hotels, houses of worship, gas stations. These types of asset owners, they really benefit from the Enphase technology. So they really value the long-term reliability, 25-year warranty. Also, a lot of these projects are going to have multi-orientations, carved up roofs, so the design flexibility is important. And also, they have a lot of foot traffic going in and out of their businesses and organizations. They want to be able to project and show off what their solar production is doing. And that's where we're having the kiosk view, which is one of our features in our monitoring. It's a good fit for them. So we're adding our technology product naturally just adds a lot of value to the small commercial market. Looking at the commercial solution, very similar to residential, which I assume a lot of you are already using Enphase for residential. But IQ8D, it supports 2 modules per microinverter. Then you are going to use a separate Q cable, a QD cable that provides the phase balancing, and then also the phase loss sensing, and that runs into a sub panel. You need to use like the residential solution, you need to use a Envoy to then be commissioning the system. And then also you have the installer toolkit and the Enlighten manager for the monitoring. Important to note that especially for RENVU as a distributor, that the QD cable and the Envoy are separate SKUs. All the different SKUs are going to be different for IQ8D. And also, unlike residential, we do not have a combiner box, so you will need to make your own sub panel. However, it's the same installer toolkit that you're currently using, and also the monitoring will be done in Enlighten Manager, so you will be able to track the system, and all the reporting is still done through Enlighten. We are doing IQ7 Plus today, IQ7 family on commercial. However, IQ8D is significantly better and have significant improvements. And some of the key ones, first and foremost, is that it's going to be a 208-volt native solution. So this will simplify the design, simplify the installation, then reduce the number of parts you'll need. Power class is becoming module power class has become a bigger issue more and more with commercial projects. IQ8D is going to have 640 peak output versus IQ7 Plus, 295. Other two important benefits of the IQ8D or improvements over IQ7 Plus are the IQ8D, and it supports 400 amp production CTs. So this allows us to get more modules and micros per Envoy, so reducing the number of Envoys you're going to need. And then also the branch length is significantly longer. You can have 18 modules per branch versus 11. So it's going to cut down in the number of parts you'll need. And then also, as I've said a couple times, fewer parts. What this means also is significantly lower costs. So 208-volt native solution, higher energy output, and lower costs than IQ7 Plus. Last slide for me on the sales side on it is, why are installers and asset owners choosing Enphase for C&I today and also in the future for when we have IQ8D? When we speak with asset owners and installers, the main reason, almost 50%, more than 50% of them are saying the number one reason is the long-term reliability. The IQ8D is going to have the 25-year warranty and the low failure rate of 0.05%. And then for commercial projects, that really resonates with a lot of asset owners and installers, a little bit more on the residential side. Also, when you're looking at a commercial system, the economics come into our economics can be a little bit more important. How much every kilowatt hour produced really matters. So over 25 years, due to our reliability, also design flexibility, we are able to provide the maximum amount of energy over 25 years. In commercial projects, the O&M is a bigger piece, and that's another kind of key advantage of Enphase in C&I. The remote monitoring and remote being able to remotely troubleshoot it saves a lot of time, and then also resources for installers and then or the asset manager, whoever is then managing the project. You're able to then be able to see, obviously, if you guys are using Enphase for residential, you are aware that you are able to then be looking at it at a per module level basis, being able to pull reports every 15 minutes to see what's going on in the system. So you are able to then determine if the system is underperforming, whether it's a Enphase issue, a module issue, or is it a grid event. And then also key with Enphase in the C&I and also residential, but really in the C&I is that there's no single point of failure. So if one module goes down, one microinverter goes down, the whole system isn't offline. Then as the asset manager or the system maintainer, you can make the decision on whether it makes sense for you to go out to the site to fix the microinverter, or just wait in the event that when you do have your your scheduled panel cleaning, your scheduled visits, to go out and replace the micro. We also in Enlighten, the Enlighten manager where the monitoring is done, we do have something you can request RMAs and get your support there. So you have additional support in monitoring the system. And with the RMAs, it's something like over 90% of our RMAs are pre-approved. So this is going to save a additional truck roll to have to go to the site and see what's going on with the system. In the event that you will need a RMA, you will then have them pre-approved, and it'll be sent to either the job site or to the shop or wherever you need the other micro. And then finally, just looking at what is the overall customer installer experience and asset owner experience in the C&I space. We'll cover it a little bit later in the presentation, just some of the additional services we're providing. But from installer perspective, you'll be getting pre-designed support and also pre-sale support. And then once you are ready for the installation, we're able to provide either remote support or have someone on site for the site commissioning. And then the event after the project is up and running, if there is the event that system goes offline or you need additional or there's customer service issues, our customer service team is answering the phone within 5 minutes, able to address any concerns that you have. So we're really on the C&I side, providing maximum value for both the asset owner, the system maintainer, and then obviously the installer as well, making sure it's a smooth process. We want to try to get small commercial never be as seamless as residential projects, but there's definitely a lot of areas of improvement where we can get it much faster and easier than what it currently is today. Now, with that, I want to turn it over to Eric. He's going to dive in a little bit deeper to some of the specifications with IQ8D.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. So yeah, just some hardware specifics. Charlie touched on this already, but the 2-to-1 modules per inverter, the micro inverter puts out 640 watts AC a piece, 2 modules, 208. 3-phase sensing, yeah, so that's and we'll get into that a little more, but it's 3-phase sensing because all 3 phases plus a neutral plug into each microinverter. So each microinverter, even though it's only producing on 2 phases, rotatingly as you plug them in, it senses all 3 phases. So in the case of a phase loss, every microinverter knows to shut down, so you won't be like doing an imbalanced backfeed or something like that. Operating temperature, single MPPT, very high efficiency, and various compliances and standards there. If you have any questions as we're going through this, just shout them out and let me know. So the key components here, obviously, again, very similar, like conceptually, as Charlie mentioned, to residential, but 3-phase specific hardware here. The cabling, again, is a 3-phase 4-wire the 3 phases plus a neutral, male and female connectors, terminators, this spider looking disconnect tool. So all the connectors are, because it's 4-wire, they're just kind of bigger than the residential versions. Ceiling caps, wire management clips, cables and adapters to go to if you have a module with, you know, a different connector on it, a different style of connector. 8D Commercial Envoy, again, not the standard residential one. 400 amp, as Charlie mentioned, production CTs. So again, that just kind of allows more microinverters to communicate and report through one envoy, so fewer envoys. Consumption CTs, mobile cell, line filter. So if you have multiple envoys, then you're gonna probably want to have line filters, just so that the communication, so we call it a domain between the envoy and the microinverters that report to that envoy. And so to keep the communication separate between the domains, that's when you would need a line filter if you have multiple envoys and multiple domains. And as Charlie mentioned, the sub panel, 3-phase sub panel, which you know, currently we don't have an Enphase 3-phase combiner panel or sub panel. Building blocks, yeah. So you know, you can kind of think of it as roughly 100 kilowatt AC building blocks, which is 162-ish microinverters per envoy. And that, you know, with the 400 amp production CTs, the 100 kilowatt blocks, you know, makes all that 400 amp equipment, you know, pretty well utilized. You can have, so that 162 microinverters basically equals 18 branches with 18 modules and 9 microinverters. That would be like roughly, you know, the 103 kilowatt block. If you have a bigger site, you know, you can just do bigger blocks, or, you know, a block plus whatever you need. So you can scale up as you need to if you have a large site. Just a side note, you know, Charlie mentioned that this is kind of aimed at rooftop. You can use it on a, you can use this system obviously on a ground mount as well. I don't know if you all do many ground mounts. And I see some questions in the chat, and I'll get to those in just a second. But, you know, it's not needing rapid shutdown, and some of the modules that are typically used for ground mounts are a little outside of the specs, input specs for the 8D. So, you know, just something to be aware of. Okay, so let me go back.
Eric, let's hold off for Q&A until the end, if that's okay.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So again, the cabling is 4 wires, 12 gauge. So you're going to have, you know, 16 amps continuous, 20 amps rated, you know, wiring it on a 20 amp 3-pole breaker per branch. The phase balancing, as I kind of touched on before, happens automatically as you plug in the micros to the connectors, because it's doing a phase rotation as you're plugging them into each connector. You're not plugging into the same 2 phases each time with each connector. So the balancing just happens automatically, and then it plugs into, it wires into a 3-phase 20 amp breaker per branch. The connector spacing. So we're kind of redoing our guidance and training material on this a little bit, because right now it's a little bit non-intuitive, but we basically, the gist of it is that we have different QD cable to match different module orientations, and the labeling of those orientations, like I say, isn't, you know, we're improving that because it's not quite intuitive right now for ordering purposes. So whether you have modules in portrait or in landscape butted up to each other end to end or not, you know, we've got a different cable length that will match whatever your orientations are of your modules. All right. And here's just a super simple diagram of a row of portrait modules. As you can see, one microinverter for every 2 modules. It's a branch of 18 with 9 micros, fully balanced across the 3 phases, and reporting through an Envoy. So that's just a sample of a branch of 18 modules and 9 micros. All right. So yeah, again, 8D specific Envoy, not your normal residential Envoy. Install it as close as possible to microinverters just to make sure that communication happens successfully, monitoring. Less than, call it 250 feet of conductor length, ideally. The Envoy does require 3-phase, all 3 phases. So it'll get a 15 or a 20 amp breaker, 3-phase wired into it, so it can sense voltage on all three phases. Includes 3 revenue grade 400 amp production CTs for your production, optional consumption CTs, so you can monitor consumption through the Envoy as well. Wi-Fi and Ethernet options are built in, and if you want to do cell monitoring, you'll need to just add a separate cell kit to that. And clipping, AC to DC ratio, basically. So this is an example from Sacramento, an actual site in Sacramento where the azimuth is 180 or very close, and the pitch is 20 degrees. So, you know, fairly close to ideal. And so just to kind of, you can see what the clipping is in year 1 versus for the 25-year, I won't even say life, I'll just say warranty of the micros. Even with, you know, very large 510 watt modules, you'll see, you know, some clipping in the first year for sure, but as the production of the modules degrades naturally over time, you know, over the 25-year course of this, you're at half of 1% of clipping, even with the 502, I should say, 2 510 watt modules per 1 micro. So that surprised me a little bit in a good way. So that's that. Sorry about my.
Thank you, Eric. So in addition to the hardware, we are providing additional C&I services to help installers do more commercial projects, help them do their first commercial project or start to lease, like bid and work on more projects. It's very difficult. It's still too difficult today to be trying to build a business around just trying to do 150 kW projects. So we're trying to remove a lot of the friction in doing these projects by creating a platform for installers. So a couple additional services I want to highlight, and feel free to reach out to us. There is more interest. We do have a design and engineering team. Eric is one of them, but also we acquired a company, DIN, and now they're able to help out by doing commercial designs and also commercial permit sets at a competitive price, available in all 50 states. We have a BOM estimator, so you can make sure that you're getting the right, not just the right Enphase equipment for your commercial project, but also some of the electrical balance of system parts. Financing, another huge bottleneck in commercial projects. We do have financing partnerships for both for-profit and nonprofit options, and then also ownership and non-ownership products. So want to make sure that financing is no longer an issue or a roadblock for being able to bid on commercial projects. And we also have an inside sales team that can help by putting together sales proposals, detailed sales proposals, not just in addition to a helioscope analysis to show what the energy production is, also a energy tool-based report, so you can then demonstrate to your customer what the savings will be over 25 years. And finally, on the acquisition side, which we recently did, we acquired a company, 365 Pronto. It's an O&M asset management platform. Think of them as the Uber for O&M services. So O&M should no longer be a bottleneck or a deterrent to having to go after doing commercial projects. Similarly, if you do have you want to keep your crew busy or you want to build out your O&M business, you can then be a 365 Pronto partner and then be able to find service work via 365 Pronto. So all in all, we feel we have a compelling hardware product, but also we have the additional services to make it so it's easy for installers to go and bid on more commercial products. So with that, wanted to turn it over to Jay, who will cover our another area that we're going into, EV charging.
Hey, thanks, Charlie. And thanks, Eric. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So look, we're super excited to talk to you today about Enphase's EV charging solution. I'll kind of keep it pretty simple here. I'll cover kind of why sell EV charging stations, why the Clipper Creek by Enphase charging station. Talk to you a little bit about the product, and then we'll have some Q&A. And at that time, we'll take all the C&I questions as well as EV charging. So, next slide there, Charlie, whoever's driving. Thanks. It's pretty amazing the sort of the low attachment rate that we see with solar installers and EV charging, but I think we probably could all agree that that will certainly change, and we're starting to see it change really like immediately. Here are the drivers that are affecting that, and why we would encourage any solar installer to really consider putting EV charging into your business portfolio. Last year, there were 5.6 million EV sales in the US, which is an 80% growth over 2020. And that is before we had gasoline prices going through the roof. So, if you feel like you're starting to see more and more EVs out on the road, you're not alone in that, you're correct. And we think that that's just going to dramatically increase as well. The biggest driver for solar guys to get into EV charging, quite honestly, is probably the bottom line. I mean, it's more revenue, it's more profit, it's a greater opportunity for referrals for solar installers. I'll go into a little bit into a little bit more details in another slide here. I firmly think that every EV owner is going to consider going solar. And I think that everybody that goes solar is going to consider getting EVs. Really, the driver behind the additional revenue profit for solar installers is it isn't necessarily on the installation and labor and markup of selling an EV charger. It's actually on the additional solar that is required to offset the usage of an EV. So a good simple calculation is about every 5,500 miles that somebody's driving in an EV, they're going to need 1 kW of extra PV. So that's basically, if somebody's driving 20,000 miles in a year, they need an extra 4 kW. Enphase, perfect solution for that. Obviously, super easy to design. put more panels on that east-facing roof if you have to, but you're going to need more power to charge up the vehicles. Clearly, you know, differentiating yourself from your competition. Again, like I said, the attachment rate is probably about 2% for solar installers selling EV charging and being knowledgeable about it. So a great way to differentiate yourself. It's cool because, again, somebody may not be getting an EV today. You install solar and they're going to remember, oh, you know, the guys that did my solar company were talking to me about EVs. Awesome. I need them to install my charging station once I go solar. Hopefully everybody will appreciate this. It's incredibly easy to sell and to install, particularly when you compare it to something like storage, which is great. But you know, there is really no commissioning, no startup time. It's a very easy product to use. Yeah, it's just more value for your customers. And you know, clearly all of us, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, we were all in the solar industry. Okay. Today we're in solar in the storage industry, and now we're all calling it the energy management. And a huge part of that is going to be charging EVs. It isn't just solar and storage; it's EV as part of that ecosystem as well. So we've got some great tools for you guys. This is very simple for anybody that's on the sales side. How do I know how much you know, PV I need to offset an electric vehicle? Got a real simple chart here, but just remember, it's about 1 kilowatt. If you're in a good sunny climate, 1 kilowatt for every 5,500 miles is what you're going to need. And I think that we're happy to send these out after the presentation. So I won't dwell on this, but great opportunity for selling more solar. Next slide, please. I love this one because it just gets right to the root of why many people are going to be looking at EVs and solar. I won't go through all the assumptions, but they're all extremely conservative, probably way too conservative. But basically, to charge up your vehicle to drive 300 miles when you have solar would be about $5. To charge up your vehicle to drive 300 miles without solar would be about $11. And to drive the 300 miles by purchasing gasoline at an average cost of, yeah, I actually can't see it. Yeah, what number is that? I can't read it on my screen.
It's like $3.
Yeah, okay, $3. I think we're being overly conservative there. It's $37, $37. So obviously it's incredibly cheap. But what strikes me though is it's 50%, it's half as much to charge your vehicle from solar as it is from the grid. Next slide, please. All right, so look, Enphase, I'm going to give you a little bit of history of Clipper Creek. So Clipper Creek is now a wholly owned company from Enphase Energy. We purchased them at the end of 2021. Really amazing story with Clipper Creek. They are the pioneers of EV charging. There's no other way to say it. They formally started in 2006. You know, like all good things out of California, they started in a garage with a visionary. And since 2006, they've become the leader in terms of number of EV charging stations sold. You can see here, they had their first really big project and customer was indeed Tesla for the Tesla Roadster and BMW electric mini charging stations, and have grown every year. And they've grown on the backs of reliability and service, which is exactly what lines up with Enphase. Many of you have been working with us for many years, and you know that's how we've grown our business through good times and bad, quite honest. It's just having a very reliable product and then backing it up with great service. And that's what we saw with Clipper Creek. Next slide, please. So what is Enphase's vision for EVs? This is where I get really excited about it. What we're doing this year is we are moving. So right now the EV chargers, Clipper Creeks, are manufactured in Auburn, California. We are already seeing the demand rapidly increase for these. So we are moving the production to our contract manufacturer in Mexico, the same place where we make our microinverters. We'll be doing that at the end of the year. So at the end of the year is when you're going to see, right now it's Clipper Creek by Enphase. At the end of the year, you'll see the Clipper Creek kind of name and brand go to the sidelines. It's still a great brand, but it is now, you know, an Enphase product and company. So it'll be branded Enphase. And we'll also make a few changes. Like that's when we're going to add full connectivity to the EV charging lineup. So today's EV chargers are not connected and not communicating with the Enphase monitoring system. Again, we'll bring that out at the end of this year. But what we do have today is an incredibly robust and reliable product that's very easy to install. And of course, you know, all EVs today, you're able to control the charge and from the EV app or from the bare minimum, the dashboard of the EV. In 2022 and 2023, we'll continue to build out the connectivity and control of both our residential and commercial EV chargers. And then all along, we will be working on, of course, vehicle to home and vehicle to grid and bidirectional charging. So that's where we see things really get exciting. Of course, you've got the F-150 Lightning that's getting manufactured like as we speak. I think it just ramped up in bidirectional charging, will become more and more prevalent, and Enphase certainly is going to be a major participant in that market. But to be clear, that isn't until probably about 2024 or 2023. As far as Clipper Creek, I'm telling you that it's the most reliable product out in the marketplace. That's also backed up by the people that own and operate Clipper Creek EV Charging and drive their vehicles on that every day. We've actually won the J.D. Power's Satisfaction Award over the last 2 years for quality, fairness of retail price, speed, reliability. Next slide, please. Yeah, and look, why sell Clipper Creek? I mean, to be honest, I think the biggest value proposition is just having one manufacturing partner. That's Enphase. It's one company that's making the micros, your inverter solution for solar, one company that's doing your storage, one company that's doing your EV charging. It's just makes things so much more simple for a solar installer to have kind of, if you want to use the word, one throat to choke or one service number to contact, one manufacturer as opposed to a bunch of different components. But every unit is UL certified. They're NEMA 4 rated, so they can go indoors, outdoors. Everything you need comes with the charging units. We'll take a look at one, the most popular ones here in a second. They've got a 3 to 5 year warranty, depending on which you get. And everyone's got integrated cable management. Next slide, please. There we go. So again, trying to make this extremely simple. About 80% of residential chargers that are sold, and this includes Clipper Creek and likely the competition for EV charging as well, provides it's a level 2 charging station. It provides a 32 amp or a 40 amp charge. What we're looking at here is called our HCS 40. This sits on a 40 amp breaker and charges the vehicle at 32 amps of continuous power. That's up to 7.7 kilowatts that's getting pushed into the vehicle. And depending on the vehicle, that's going to be anywhere from 25 to 30 miles per hour average. This is the most popular one, by the way, because it is enough charge for nearly anybody to recharge their vehicle after a day of commuting. I drive an EV, I have an EV charging unit. This is the exact rate that I charge at. And unless I'm driving more than 200 miles in a day, this is plenty of charge for me over an 8-hour period. Again, it's got the 25 amp cable, and we have different sizes. So if you wanted to charge at 40 amps or 48 amps or even up to 60 amps, we have an HCS series that'll work for you. You can get this in a hardwired version or a plug-in version. So totally up to you. There's some pros and cons to each. But again, plug-in and hardwired version as well. We do have many commercial options as well. Usually it's this HCS 40 or the HCS 50, but we have everything from pedestals and dual charging stations to quad charging stations to cable management systems. And we do have third-party technology partners that we work with that provide all kinds of, any kind of access and control, monitoring, the ability for a landlord or a facility manager to charge, fleet management as well. We have all of that as well, but I kind of wanted, but to be honest, the building block of all of those is this HCS series, which is what we're looking at today. And I think that's all that I've got. So, hey, look at that, 10:45. That leaves us some time for Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure Charlie and Eric can also help answer questions on the CNI side.
Great. Thanks, Jay, Eric, and Charlie. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask in the Q&A section, and we'll try to get to as many of you as we can, and follow up by email if we can't go through everything. You can also email our sales team at info@renvu.com for more information and pricing. And as I mentioned before, webinar is being recorded, and we will send a link in a follow-up email. So I see, looks like some of the questions we've been answering in the chat. We'll try and keep most of those in the Q&A to keep track of what we're answering. I see, looks like Aristotle chimed in with asking about the RMA process. Can you guys talk a little bit about that?
Return merchandise agreement. So pretty simple. In Enlighten, you'll want to, if the system is offline or underproducing, or presumably it's not going to be offline, but if there's a microinverter or module that's not reporting or producing, you can then run a diagnostic on that micro. And then if it's turns out it's an Enphase issue, you then automatically, and then you just hit request RMA, and then it'll get sent out to you immediately. However, if it's not a Enphase, if we can't determine at the time it's not an Enphase issue, then you'll need to go out of the site, and then some remote, not remote, on-site troubleshooting will be necessary.
All right. We also have Andrew asking if the IQ8D could be used on residential, if there was a sub panel to reduce the phase, if it's not capable at the 3-phase. Is there anything like that that you guys are aware of?
It's a 3-phase only product, but I'm not sure I'm not sure I got the question right.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess if Andrew can clarify, we can get back to him on that. Looks like Russell's asking, can you have a branch circuit that is not divisible by 3?
Yeah, I mentioned that in the chat. Yeah, you can. So you could have a branch of, say, 8. The only thing there is that literally with the trunk cable or with the QD cable, you're going to be chopping off connector number 9, and so you're either going to want to use that in your next branch, or basically it's just a matter of balancing. You're going to want to make sure that as close as possible to the same, that you have micros plugged into each of the 3 phases, the same number of micros as close as possible per phase, just so that you have the phases balanced. So, it's just a little more focus on the installation, but it's absolutely not a problem to have not divisible by 3 branches.
Got it. So Daniel's asking, if I have a site with 13 buildings close to each other, and they're all dependent on their own PV system on each roof, and each building has an envoy, does he need a line filter for each building?
We would recommend that. I mean, it might depend a little on the distances involved, but we would recommend a filter per envoy, yes.
All right, and Mark is asking, do you have plans to make the EV SE connect to the Enphase AC combiner box?
That is something we're looking at very carefully. So when we move manufacturing at the end of this year is when we plan on coming out with our connected product. So I'll have to punt until probably Q1. I'll just say, to be conservative, I should tell you Q4, but let's just say Q1. We'll have the details on the connectivity.
Got it. All right. And Daryl's asking, what about a 60 amp circuit? I'm not sure if that's in regards to the EV charger or something else. I guess if Daryl can chime in with a little more information, we can get back to that. Barry's asking, can we install 2 Enpower 10s on a 15 kilowatt PV system? And if not, why? That one we could also save for after. Maybe there's some more details we dive into there.
Yeah, that's a storage question, and actually the 8D is not compatible with storage currently.
Okay, good to know. What kind of app or interface is there for customer control and view and the charge progress and settings? This comes from Dennis, and I believe this is for the EV chargers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So today, the Enphase EV chargers do not have connectivity with the Enphase app. They are 2 separate programs. So there is no ability to turn on or off the charging or time it from the Enphase app. However, of course, all EVs come with their own app or on the lower package models on the dashboard where you can control the charge and tell it what time to charge and at what rate. So while you don't have that through the Enphase app, you do have that through your vehicle app. That is something that we plan on incorporating when we launch the connected product toward the end of this year. I will say 2 other things on that though. I mentioned I have an EV and I have an Enphase PV system. It's very apparent and obvious when the vehicle starts to charge. I have it programmed to start charging at 9:15 p.m. That's when off-peak rates start, because my usage goes from 400 watts to 7,700 watts, and I can see exactly how long it's charging. So for the time being, I have all the control and connectivity I need, but understood that's something that we'll be coming out with directly in the Enphase app toward the end of the year.
Great. Oh, it looks like Daryl responded. He's wondering if there's any 60 amp capability for the EV charger. He's looking to put it on a 60 amp circuit.
Fantastic. There is. It's called the HCS 60, and that provides that sits on a 60 amp breaker, and that provides a charge of 48 amps continuous.
All right, and jumping back to the IQ8Ds, Aristotle's asking if you could speak on higher voltages, such as 3-phase from 277 up to 480 volt.
It's compatible. You'll need a transformer.
All right, and Andrew's asking if there's any possibility for the IQ8Ds to be used in 3-phase residential.
Well, if it's 208 volt 3-phase, then that will work. But at residential, presumably it's going to be single phase, and it will not work with single phase.
Got it. There you go, Andrew. All right, so David is asking, what has Enphase done with microinverter communication because of larger quantities and larger distances? In residential projects over 40 micros, there are typically issues with reporting.
So the Enphase is done with, yeah, so as far as we're IQ8D is going to be the same. So we're limited to 250, the modules need to be within 250 feet of the array. And then it's going to be 165, it'll report 165 micros. So that's 324 odd modules, which is definitely an improvement. And that's actually something where we're excited about. I've been, one of the improvements that we're seeing internally, that the Envoy is going to be able to, will continue to increase the number of micros that it's going to continue to improve. And we've made some internal hires of people that are PLC experts. So we are having the best and the brightest working to improve our communication. And then eventually don't hold us to a timeline on this, but I'm confident in that eventually the need for a filter will end up ultimately just going away because our PLC will be a lot cleaner and smoother. Eric,
Nice.
anything to add on that?
No, I think we all are looking forward to that day. Usually. But yeah.
Just that it's a great point, and that's a nice feature that want to improve on the communication, and we're working on it.
Yeah, and apparently with the 8D, it's got a newer, I don't know what you call it, protocol for communication than the 7s and prior ones. And we're in beta testing right now. We've commissioned a few systems, so we don't have a ton of information on that yet, but it seems like already that the communication is going to be more reliable. And as Charlie said, we think that'll just continue to improve as we improve things internally.
Good to know.
Right. I know at least on our roadmap, we can say that it's going to have 600 amp production CTs. So that's going to then be, that's going to increase to like 249, 250 micros per Envoy.
All right. Daniel chimed in with a good question here. I've actually saw this raised internally within our team as well. How will the dual series connected modules, screen's jumping around on me here. How will the dual series connected modules reduce to sub 80 volts required for the rapid shutdown as per NEC 690.12? Most modern panels are over 40 volts each.
Yeah, I think, I don't know that it will, but I think that's okay. My understanding is that we went through testing and got special, compliance to work with at that DC voltage with the 2 modules per 1 micro. So we
can send out the notice from UL that we received that it's compliant. So it's
nice. Perfect.
We'll send that out with the slides.
All right. And Mark is asking, does the IQ8D report the combined production from the 2 modules, or is it able to disambiguate those 2?
Combined.
All right, there you go, Mark. We also have Aristotle asking another question for frequency bandwidth. Is that adjustable to avoid clipping from a dirty grid?
Are you talking about communication there?
Yeah, let's see if Aristotle can clarify that.
Regardless, I think as far as I know, the frequency is not, the communication frequency is not adjustable. And if you have a dirty grid and it's interfering with communication, then you would need to add a filter.
All right, there we go. What connector is used on the EV charger? Dale's asking that.
It is the standard J plug, so it'll work on any vehicle out there. It's the SAE J1772. Every vehicle that is, except for Tesla, and every Tesla comes with the adapter. So this will work on any EV out there.
All right, and looks like there's just a few more questions before we wrap things up. Daryl's asking, will my Enphase dealer be selling Cripple Creek or I guess it sounds like you guys are branding that soon as Enphase.
Yes, I mean, it is Enphase today. We're keeping it's Clipper Creek by Enphase, but the end of the year, it'll be known as Enphase, and they're available right now. RENVU's got them. So there you go.
All right. Looks like Fred's asking about the filter. Is he going to need that filter on the old Envoy or the new one? He's doing a system with both of them, it looks like.
Anytime there's multi-envoy, we recommend a filter. And then we're happy to look at the design, see if like look at the distance, where the transformer is, if the filter is going to be necessary. But our recommendation is to design with the filter when there's more than one envoy.
All right. And Aristotle chimed in a bit more. He's on an island. The frequency is unstable. So he has issues with the inverter shutting down. He's curious if adjusting the bandwidth on the filter will help to solve this.
Well, the filter is only for communication between the Envoy and the micros. So to strictly answer that question, no. The general question of, either frequency changes or even, over or under voltages from the grid, you might want to just give us a call, and maybe we can change the grid setting on the micros or something to allow a little broader window to accommodate that variation. I don't hold me to that, but give us a call and we can maybe ask about it.
All right. Well, it's definitely an edge case, but awesome that you guys are able to field those kinds of questions. Couple last questions here. Fred did follow up. He's wondering where that filter goes. Is it where does the filter go in the system? I think is generally what he's asking.
Goes just on the line side or grid side of each Envoy.
Okay, each Envoy, old and new.
Yes.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for the questions we have right now, and I think we'll save any other questions to be answered offline. Thanks everyone for attending, and did you guys want to leave any other notes before we go?
Thank you very much. We'll be sending out the slides.
Great. All right, you guys, look for those slides, and we will send everyone a recording of the webinar to review in the coming days. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.